This is the most fun I've had in this game. And they're taking it away from us. Unbelievable. I just don't even believe it. I mean, this guy should have, like, a Mystic Shot, but in a lot of good case scenarios, this could bait out a Thermo.
No one's the wiser.
Deck name, Smug Backseat Ezreal. That's not bad. I mean, it's the first step above a simple description of the deck, right? Like, it is like, I mean, I see the reasoning. I see the rationale, you know? Which does make sense. Yeah, I think with 2 in hand, you can actually avoid playing 1 on this turn. Normally, you actually, if you only had 1, you would play the 1 on this turn. But because one of them will be able to survive beyond, like, the single Mystic Shot hand or the single Thermo hand, the 5 has a decent shot at connecting, and we are attacking on evens, so I think we are totally fine with that. If we play Grenadier, we get, like, Ultra Mega punished by Static Shock, and also Make It Rain, the 2 cards that are insanely in his range. God, am I passing? I mean, I don't think I can actually pass here, unfortunately. I probably do have to play one of the Hopefuls. It doesn't give him, like, great options. Like, it's pretty easy for him to Mystic Shot this. But if he doesn't have Mystic Shot, then we're kind of, like, up 2 mana. So it's like, we're either up 2 mana relative to him, or we're down 1, right? Like, you look at the pass there, you look at the over-under. Okay, so we have a positive burn. If we pass, we burn 1 less than him, which puts us on +1 burn to him, right? So if I take the pass, I get the guaranteed burn. If I play the Hopeful, if he has the Mystic, then the pass happens, then we're mana neutral, which means I can save 2 mana on the 50-50 by saving the Hopeful, or I can cost myself 1. So basically, it's very, very close to equivalent odds, right? It's very close to equivalent odds here. It's probably a misplay, to be honest. Because the odds of him having Mystic Shot are technically more than 50%, barely.
Never lost a fair game, all that good.
Well, I mean, I can force out his TF. I don't know if that's, like, valuable. Is it? Not really. Kind of has a hard time dealing 2 damage to the entire board. You'd have to, like, have 2 Make It Rains, or Make It Rain static. Actually, that's a really easy time. Okay, well, something's about to hit. I don't know what. I don't know what, but one thing is gonna deal a lot of damage here. Okay, so he's on the double Make It Rain. He whiffed the ability to hit the Basilisk with the second one. Playing the Yordle before playing Make It Rain, I don't think could have made sense. Because, like, the board wasn't getting better. And we were always going to play something that makes Make It Rain worse. I'm never going to play, like, one of these here. I'm always going to play Kato. Okay, so we're going to threaten some serious stuff. We've got basically the full amount we're going to need. And the transfusion is a nut draw here as well. This is going to be one big dick attack here. And we can develop deep into this because he doesn't have TF, which is really nice. So, I mean, I can take the transfusion now. It's definitely too early to take it. It would be kind of insane to have taken it there. Third Make It Rain is hard. It's fairly easy for him to be on a static, though. If he's on a static, he's about to take a shit ton of damage. If he takes the Pilfered Goods, I mean, he had his double draw. That should offer pretty weak options against me, I think. Got at 2 mana, though, man. I have to say, I think I take a risk here. It feels like everything's out of his range. It feels like Mystic Shot's out of his range. Make It Rain's out of his range. Parlay's out of his range. Thermo Beam could be in his range. He could have a Thermo. So, like, if I transfuse and leave Kato low and then play the Hopeful, then we can get punished by a Thermo. I feel like I should actually take a real risk here. Like, it's so hard for him to actually have the punish. It's so hard for him to here. Thermo is the only thing he could have, and it's lower odds that he has it. It's like, I know it's a very, very like specific hand read. He's more inclined to block this. It's a super specific hand read, like that I would almost never do. But like, the way the game has played out just makes it a little too likely. Third make it rain this has to be done? Because Mystic Shot you would do before the attack. Otherwise, I mean, you're getting like, kind of like less value, right? Okay. Yeah, that'll work out. Works out for me. Nothing in this deck is getting nerfed. Yeah, I mean, they're not really nerfing anything in any deck. The Solitary Monk is gonna have a really, really impossible time making a difference for the Heimer deck. Yeah, this dude has no options. I guess Pet's actually a little ahead. Wait for you to buff a unit with Kato and then Mystic it. I mean, it depends what I'm buffing with Kato though, right? How's that better than just killing the Kato? Like, is there a reason that would be? Killing the Kato does the same thing, but it gives less counterplay options, right? It's just the same thing, but better. Why don't you just attack? Attacking is less good, but I should just play Demolitionist. I was supposed to play Demolitionist before we passed last turn. Because the Demolitionist will kind of force his response to the Fervor, and then the Fervor is usually a win at that point. Usually.
Remember the objectives.
Ezreal, yeah, Ezreal's fine. So yeah, the one misplay that we made there was just like not. We took like a greedy pass, basically, for pretty little reason. We're supposed to play the Demolitionist instead of passing there, and then we have like quite good odds to win that game. The difference in odds is not actually that high. It's probably about like 10% that it makes the difference, but it's still like a pretty big misplay to make. Like, you never want to be donking away like 10% like that. Attack the barrel with the Overwhelm. Yeah, I mean, you can open swing there too, sure. I mean, you should never be in the position where you have to open swing, right? Violise. That's kind of interesting. I actually want to keep like all this early. I think I'll just keep this and see what happens. Violise is Curvina. It should be, yeah. I mean, his name is Controle Vi/Elise. That's a fairly good draw. We have like a pretty good board against Elise. Like we happen to have the rare double attack into this, which is kind of like normally a bit hard. Transfusion on the Grenadier when he had 2 mana. No reason to do so. Let it die then swing. If he doesn't have a fast answer, you won just by the attack. Yeah, I mean, I think that is probably a misplay. I think you probably are like lowering your odds, right? I don't disagree with that. Yeah, that's probably worth it. It's pretty likely he has Mystic Shot or second Vile Feast. But this is still like kind of like some of the better odds you're getting. We're not really like having the ability to counter grasp with that later. I've been keeping Kato in made hands just because I want to like try out these lines. I don't actually know if I should be. Are you in the Twitch Rivals? I don't know. Have they announced who's in it? If I was allowed to say, if I was in it, would I be allowed to say that I was in it? I assume that people that are in it that can say that they're in it probably, but I don't know for sure, so I couldn't answer that. Guy's fucked. Yeah, I mean, he's a little fucked. I mean, he's fairly fucked. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and, like, develop into the Ruination. There's a couple of important aspects to, like, the Ruination development. So basically, we have to play the Kato this turn. So let me explain how the last couple of things boiled down. So you look at this play. We have the attack that's going to be representing lethal on 6. We have a total of 11 mana, so that's Kato, Trifarian, Might equals 11. Pretty straightforward. Now we want to commit to developing into turn 6 so that he has a chance to ruinate us, right? It's very important to give them a chance to ruinate you without necessarily representing lethal. So in this case, we actually don't have the re-up lethal over Ruinate, because it would be like Trifarian, he Ruinates, and then we Grenadier and hit him. And that's not technically lethal, but the biggest value in that is that Ruination is increased value due to our own hand, so we kind of want to be thinking about diminishing its value, right? It's kind of like the most important part. Didn't end up mattering here. He has 7 mana though? Right, but he didn't when I'm talking about the thing that I'm talking about. I'm explaining the play. And that's a really, really important, like, path of logic to understand, which is like, A, make sure you're developing into Ruination, make sure you don't make the mistake of open attacking into it, and B, make sure that you're looking at cards in hand as a function of their future value, right? Like, because we have Harrowing in hand, Ruination is a card that will gain value no matter what, which means even though we don't have the re-up lethal as a counter to the Ruination, we need to be able to beat a hand state of Ruination because of our hand, right? And that's why we make that play. The bonus, because we play Kato the turn before and then Trifarian the turn after, we have more unit mana than spell mana on 6, and the reason for that is to allow us to re-up the Grenadier, right? I think Deny is the direction forward for this deck. I think it's better than Harrowing. I think Harrowing blows. Deny is the only way to develop into Ruination. Deny makes developing into SI important. Oh, I disagree with that. I think Ruination's kind of a meme card. Like, I mean, I think that developing into Ruination is kind of like what you need to be doing anyway. To be able to develop into Ruination, all you need is to put them to slightly low health. Deny doesn't counter Ruination. I think it's actually like... I think Deny is actually a horrible card against Ruination. I think it's the other way around. I think Ruination counters Deny. You don't want to be at that side of the interaction. It's like, it's the opposite of what you want, for sure. Okay, I'll explain like more, I guess, in depth after this game. If they're floating mana to rep Ruination, then you can expect that and hold up Denied to blow them out. So, here, you know what? Let me actually, I'll just concede this game, because you guys, I need to actually explain this. Because I think this is actually something that's fairly important to talk about. Deny versus Ruination, right? Like I said, Ruinate counters Deny. So when you're in Deny, when you have the hand state of Deny, you have, you know, the bit of a tempo loss. So I'll explain this in like 3 different ways. Okay, so the game state, Shadow Isles has 9 or 10 mana banked, and the whole point is when you're developing into these turns, they're representing a lot of options. On one side, they have Ruination. And on the other side, they have the rest of their cards, which is like Grasp, they have Whale, they've got Vengeance. These are kind of like the big ones. Even stuff like Vile Feast, maybe. If they have 10 mana, that's really scary for this side, because they have like Grasp, Whale, Grasp, Grasp, Whale, Whale, and that's a big deal. But even if they have 9 mana, they're still usually representing a threat here, right? So here's the thing. And this is the big thing that control decks does in Runeterra, which is that you threat both options, right? They, you know, it's turn 9. They have to decide what to do. If they open attack, you do this. If they develop, then you can do this, right? Reasonably speaking, here's the thing though. If they develop, you don't really have to do this at all. Like, at all. If they develop, you can, and you usually don't, by the way. You almost never actually ruinate when they develop. You can ruinate when you are, you know, at the point where you're sure you can't die to their re-up of the board after the Ruination, which, by the way, should be almost never, right? Almost never. So you look at this kind of game state, the first thing to realize, the number one thing, is that the opponent will never take a Ruination over one of these options against a deck that is threatening deny with 4 mana up unless they have no choice. Like, think about that. They will never, ever, ever do that. Right? So your deny... you're not going to force a Ruination. Deny forces a game state that will lower the odds of it actually being able to interact with Ruination. So you can save Deny in your hands, and you can develop a bit, but you're floating the same mana that you need for the re-up with less tempo in the early game, and then you end up like denying a Grasp and trading mana for mana in the late game. This is absolutely the opposite of what you want to do. Absolutely the opposite of what you want to do. I understand that this is like really counterintuitive. To beat Ruination, it's as simple as apply early pressure and keep options for the re-up so they can never play it. That's the point of, like, the way you beat Ruination is by engineering a board state where they can't play it, right? It's like using Deny with Fizz. Using Deny with Fizz is redundant because Fizz is already a card that counters spells. Using Deny on Ruinate is redundant for the same exact reason. Because you're supposed to counter Ruination with your tempo and your unit play patterns, which Deny is like the only card in your deck that cannot do that. I'm not exaggerating in the slightest when I say that Ruination does counter Deny in that interaction. It is literally the opposite of what you want to be doing. How are you supposed to always develop into Ruination? You put them to low health, and then you threaten the re-up on the Ruination at the end. How are you supposed to re-up if you develop? Because Ruination costs 9 mana, and you have, like, that, I mean, at least most of that, which means you play a thing and then you'll play another thing.